My guest today is very important. This is a very important episode. Laura Scharr is with South Carolina Safe Elections. We had a very deep and interesting conversation regarding election integrity across this nation, specifically in my state, the state of South Carolina, but this is applicable to every citizen in every state regarding the integrity of your vote, how it's actually cast, and how it's actually counted. I hope you get as much value from this conversation as I did. I found it to be very informative and enlightening and somewhat enraging. So, without further ado, guys, let's get into this thing. Laura Scharr, SC Safe Elections. Laura Scharr, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So you come highly recommended by many people who I interact with, basically daily, certainly weekly, being heavily involved in the York GOP, York County, South Carolina. Now, this is, I guess, technically a global show, but it's certainly a national show. But specifically, this episode with you is very pointed at my South Carolina listeners. However, I think a lot of people will get a lot of value from this. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Elections matter, and they matter across the globe. So
tell me a little bit about what you do with your organization. Tell me what the organization is and what you guys do, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So we're SC Safe Elections, South Carolina Safe Elections, and we've been around for a few years now. Mm-hmm. We started working on this right after the 2020 election. And there are people across the state that help out. There are some volunteers that, do a little bit here and a little bit there. There are other people that are helping us weekly. But essentially, we are just dedicated to basically enhancing the transparency of our elections. We want to make sure that they're accurate. We want to make sure that there's accountability with our election systems. And we also want to make sure that they're auditable.
What are you talking about? I thought our elections were extremely transparent, free, and fair.
Safest and secure ever, right?
Yeah, that's always what I've been told by CNN.
Well, what's interesting is right after the election, Rasmussen did a poll asking people if they trusted the election system, if they believed there was cheating. And, there were a certain amount of people who were very disappointed in the results. But since then, actually, that number has gone up.
Oh, wow.
And right now, 62% plus of likely voters in the United States believe there was cheating in 2020 and in 2022, and also don't trust that there's going to be a fair election in 2024. So this is a problem. This has only gone up, this lack of trust. And so that is what we're addressing. We want people to feel more confident, because when people are not confident about their elections, they don't vote. Candidates don't run. It's like a downward spiral, and we can't have that happen.
Well, so when you say greater than 60%, I mean, now you're talking not just your extremist, far right-wing, racist, bigot, homophobe, terrible, awful people like me. You're talking even some Democrats.
Absolutely. And their numbers have gone up too. So they don't trust the system.
What do you think drives that distrust in Democrats specifically? Because that's kind of shocking to me. I mean, I know that Republicans are all about election integrity, which, by the way, it's a little odd that when you look at sort of the talking heads for both sides in the mainstream media, there's really only one side that wants transparency and fairness in elections. But you're talking about the general populace, the voters, the electorate. There are a lot of people on the left, it sounds like, who are concerned with this as well. So where does that come from? Is it just so blatantly obvious that they even can't deny it?
It's becoming so. Okay, so remember 2016, they were all out there denouncing, they're saying, hey,
this is true.
They were rabidly against, that election, those election results. And they did, I have tapes on our website of the Democrats coming out and saying, this election was fraudulent. This was wrong. This couldn't have happened. There's no way that Donald Trump became president, blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, 4 years later, suddenly nothing.
Yeah.
But you're right. What I think is happening is there's this, and of course, independents too, huge increase with them.
Yeah.
And so what they're seeing is something like what happened in Arizona with Carrie Lake's trial.
Oh my gosh.
It's hard to just look the other way and say, okay, yeah, that was fine. There's more. I don't know. You probably follow these election news, not maybe as closely as I do, but I'm sure you see it. Like
I don't know if anybody follows it as closely as you do.
No. Lately, every week, it seems there's another thing that comes out, a drip, a drip, a drip. And so people are just losing confidence in this very complex, very opaque system.
Right. And I think that sort of exacerbating that is, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I know there have been nationwide polls that have shown that faith in the mainstream media is at all-time lows as well.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Politicians and the media. It's extremely low.
And so if you don't trust either of those, you're certainly going to have questions about the integrity of elections.
That's right. Yeah.
So, okay. Now we're at a place where both sides have their questions. Obviously, the right has had questions consistently. And, you mentioned 2016. I think that's a very fair point. A lot of people forget Hillary Clinton was outright saying that Donald Trump stole the election. Stacey Abrams in Georgia still claims that the election was stolen for the gubernatorial race. And then we can go back even further, right? There was the whole the hanging Chad issue in Florida way back in the day. And I mean, every election, depending on who wins and who loses, you have one side denying it and the other side saying, no, it was perfect. It was beautiful.
Well, and they specifically were going against the machines, the electronic voting systems, because it's more than really a machine. We use machine as kind of like it's just a word we use, but essentially it's a very complex electronic voting system of lots of different phases and lots of different steps and lots of pieces of equipment. And, you've got, and there's 4 phases, really 4 steps to the process. There's the voter rolls, right? So you have to maintain them and keep them clean.
You mean dead people can't vote?
Exactly. And people that moved from the state many, many years ago. And this is the kind of stuff we found in our canvassing efforts. So you got the voter rolls, got to keep them clean, clean in a timely fashion. Then you've got the poll book. So how people come in and they sign into the poll book. And that's a system right there. It's a Wi-Fi system. They call it MiFi. It's an intranet. And then the next step is you go to your ballot marking device where you're selecting, and then the tabulator where you're scanning your ballot. It's not really a paper ballot, and we can talk about that in a little bit. They call it a paper ballot, but it's not a paper ballot. So that's a pet peeve of mine.
Right, because it's an electronic input that results in a printout, right?
Yeah, it's more of a receipt.
A receipt, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then the final step is the reporting that goes to actually a foreign company. So there's all those phases, and think about it. Any one of those there could be an issue with it. And then, of course, you got the absentee balloting, and that's happening as well. And so there's a lot of stages where it could be potentially infiltrated, potentially there's an issue. You just need one little misstep, and there could be a problem.
Right, and the mail-in voting that was sort of ubiquitously adapted because of the
COVID
pandemic. So, and I think any person can concede that if you take any system, anything that is a large effort at accomplishing something, the more steps you add to it, the more opportunity you have to corrupt that system, right?
Absolutely. And I always say that complexity breeds potential corruption or potential malfeasance.
Right.
And basically, to put it very simply, the more steps that you put in the process, the more people you put in, your risk of issues with security just goes substantially up.
Right.
So,
I mean, that's why, military operations have compartmentalization. If you and I both come from the world of science in different capacities, but you know that a lot of these teams working on really classified projects, let's say there's someone working on propulsion and there's someone working on materials, they should be able to talk to each other because that would result in the best science, but they're not allowed to because our government, our military understands that that's a problem. And so it's very interesting that they won't concede that with this convoluted voting process.
Yeah. And it goes one step further. So in the old days, we used to go to our precinct. We kind of would recognize people because they're from our neighborhood. It's a relatively small precinct.
Right.
in South Carolina, we're only supposed to have 1,500 registered voters per precinct, and that doesn't always happen, okay? So we go in there, we see the people, we kind of know them, we voted there, we counted there, and it was something that we had local control of.
Right.
So what's happened since then? We've taken our control and we've abdicated control and we've given it away to our state, our DHS and CISA, our U.S. government, who are in the back doors of these machines.
And CISA is what?
That's the Center for Infrastructure,
CISA?
Security, something like that. I don't always remember, but
there's so many acronyms.
They are basically in charge of security for the election machines. Mm-hmm. And so they were created, I believe, back in 2017. I believe they were written into law. But so we've given control of the system over to our state government, our national government, corporations, the manufacturers of the voting machines. They have complete control. They have control. ES&S is what we use in South Carolina. And so they have control over our voting system, our poll books, our e-poll books, our voter rolls. They essentially are, maintaining those as well. And so we don't necessarily, we've basically given that away to, and also think about the third parties that are involved. Eric helps us maintain our voter lists and gives us, some ideas of how to clean the rolls. Plus, they send out that data to other nonprofits who then target us for voting. So our personal data is going out. We have CITL, which is the reporting. That's another corporation. It's actually, private equity. It's closely held. They are in charge of the reporting of our results. And so we've really taken the control and we've kind of farmed it out to all these players. And we've lost that local control. And unfortunately, in South Carolina, it's a very centralized system here. The SEC, our election commission, makes a lot of the decisions that just flows down to all the counties. The counties have very little say in terms of how they run their elections.
Right.
So, and other states aren't like that. The counties have more flexibility.
Yeah, that is true. And in South Carolina, it's supposed to be, obviously your vote is private, but there's supposed to be some transparency in the counting of the vote, right? Private vote, public counting. Mm-hmm. But it sounds to me like this is all getting outsourced and nobody has any transparency whatsoever.
And they won't give us any records. So we go back to the paper ballot, and this is my pet peeve because it's not a paper ballot. And they will say, we have a paper ballot. We've got paper.
Okay, explain to us why we actually don't have a paper ballot.
Okay, so to me, when I say a paper ballot, it's hand marked, it's hand counted. I can see how I voted, and I could actually observe the counting of it to ensure that the vote was, done.
Right.
Once again, it can be done in a private way. You can mark your ballot, stick it in a box.
Like it used to be that way.
Right.
Back in the day.
So what we have now is a coded ballot.
Okay.
So you make your selections on the ballot marking device. It's Express Vote machine. It prints out your selections and it shows you who you voted for. So you should check it, but most people don't.
No, they don't.
Half the people
I've
don't.
seen that. Yeah.
And when they do, they miss the errors because they've run some tests where they changed something. There was an error on the ballot and 93% of the people don't pick it up when they do check it. So it's huge. But at the top of that ballot, even though it shows what you select, at the top are barcodes.
Right. Yeah, I have seen that.
So the barcode is what is being read by that machine, that tabulator, when you go and scan it. And that's what's tabulating that vote. Mm. So this is why I say we don't know.
Yeah, we don't speak barcode.
Well,
so we don't know what
that's actually. Can you verify
what
what that barcode? You don't have a barcode reader with you, and you're not allowed to take a picture of that according to the Election Commission of your ballot so that you can get a barcode. So you have no idea. That could be programmed to switch your vote to someone else.
Right. I mean, that's how I would set it up if I wanted to switch people's votes.
If you were a nefarious person, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's easy. So that's not a paper ballot. It's a receipt, and it's really not even a receipt because I have no proof.
Sure. Yeah.
And then this is what happened when the county came down, the GOP, and said, you can't run for a powerful position because you need to have voted in 2 of the last 3 primaries. Well, how do you prove it? And the data was not very accurate because I had several people approaching me, emailing and saying, they're telling me I can't vote, but I know I voted. I remember what I wore. I remember going with my husband. I remember blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I was helping with the campaign for this person, so I know I went and voted. And so that's the problem. There's no way to know and verify your vote. Now, the other thing is, think about it. It's a big black box.
Right. Total black box.
Total black box.
Yeah.
That's designed that way. So if you went to a grocery store, Dave, and you went and they gave you a receipt, do you expect that receipt to just have your total?
No. It should be itemized so that I can actually see what I purchased.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do we get at the end of the day from voting?
An I voted sticker?
Yeah, that. And a poll tape. And
Right,
the poll tape
right.
says totals. This is the total. But we have no idea what happened and how that count came to be.
Right. Oh, you mean for the day for all the votes?
What happened in that black box?
Right. Yeah.
So that's a cast vote record. And that's what we're right now asking for, the cast vote record, to see how that vote changed over time in that black box.
Well, surely there wouldn't be any reluctance to provide that, right?
28 states and the District of Columbia provide that to the public through a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request.
But
South Carolina
does not.
We're not allowed to know how our vote was counted.
Why
Because
is that?
Personally identifiable information. We don't have personally identifiable information.
Yeah, it doesn't have to have that. It's just...
If you look at a ballot, it has no personally identifiable information. So we have we're currently in court trying to fight this, and we have 3 expert witnesses, actually 4 now, who claim there is no PII, and there's no way to tie a person to a ballot. So they make some tiny arguments like, well, what if it's an area where there's only a few people with that ballot style and they all voted Republican, and then you could know how they voted? Fine, filter those out. That's what other states do. And the other argument they make, well, what if there's a write-in and it's like Mickey Mouse, and I write down Mickey Mouse because I want to prove to someone I voted for them because they're going to pay me. That's fraud. So we're going to protect, first of all, that's ridiculous. Why should we not get how our vote is counted? Because a couple bad actors want to commit fraud.
Right.
And by the way, we can also redact any write-ins.
Right. And again, other states do it.
Other states do it. So I always like to use the analogy, like if you saw your spouse with their cell phone and they were texting and you go, can I see your phone? And they went, no, can't see the phone.
That's a dead giveaway that you should see the phone. Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing here with the CDR.
Yeah.
Why are they? And they won't give us the security logs either. That shows if there's any interconnectivity. Well, they're not connected. So give us the security logs. Who connected to that piece of equipment when? Nope, can't have it because critical infrastructure.
Yeah. It's all very odd because the entire purpose of all of this is that to take it to first principles as far as constitutionality and everything, it was created by us for us so that we could
It's our system.
Cast our vote. It's
we pay
ours.
For it.
Exactly. We pay for it. And then they treat us like we have no right to make sure it's functioning correctly.
Yeah, because they are in power and we're just the people. And that's how I feel constantly. It's like the people don't have a voice anymore. And our Constitution is very specific. We're different from other states where our Constitution specifically says that our votes shall be cast in secret, but not counted in secret.
Right. Yeah.
Well, if they're in a black box and I can't see how they're being counted,
that's as secret
they're
as it
being
gets.
counted in secret.
Yeah. So in a perfect world, what is the ultimate solution to this? And are there any states that are doing it exactly the right way?
It's interesting. So we have been in contact with so many cyber experts, computer geeks, and some of whom have been researching this, now since 2020 and even before that. I mean, some of them decade plus. And what they all say is we need to go back to the basics, simple, hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots at the precinct. So I would even like to see the absentee ballots sorted out. And by the way, 1 day of voting, not 2 weeks like they instituted with the last election integrity bill. They actually added 2 weeks of early voting.
Right.
So what's interesting about that, it's highly expensive, right? Because you've got to You've got to staff it. You've got to have the equipment out to all these different voting centers and then move it to all the precincts afterwards. It's expensive and it depresses turnout.
Really?
There's a Heritage
I guess it would,
Foundation, because you say, okay, there's a Heritage Foundation study that was done, I believe, in 2017, if I remember correctly, that shows that it depresses turnout. Because think about it. You go, oh, I can do it tomorrow. Oh, well, I still have I'll do it this weekend because Saturday,
Right.
And then you go, oh, well, there's election day. And then, you let it go. And so because you've expanded that time, people tend to go,
oh, come on. People don't procrastinate. They would never do such a thing. So I've heard specifically Vivek Ramaswamy, for example, running for Republican in the Republican primary. I like what he has to say about make it a national holiday, one day, handwritten. That I think a lot of countries actually do that. So why don't we?
I think people like the system the way it is.
People
there's
who
a
have
reason.
An interest in the system being corruptible.
This system, there's a lot of money in elections. He who controls the election controls the world and, the leader of the free world. And therefore, there's a lot of money that think about the consequences of this last election and what's happened to our world.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so there's a lot of money. There's a huge incentive to cheat. And why are people who have been in office for 30, 40 years still in office?
That's a great question.
You're telling me no one thought, well, gee, I maybe don't like what they're doing, and I'm just still going to elect that person. And now they're 85, 90 years old, and I still want them in office, even though I think that maybe they're a little fragile and they can't even, Dianne Feinstein just died. She's 90. I'm not saying that all 90-year-olds are not capable, but most 90-year-olds are retired.
Right. And maybe not all 90-year-olds are incapable of doing the job, but I think you can say with pretty high confidence that there are probably better people to hold these offices of power, right? Offices of power, I say in quotes, because really they work for us. But, that is something I think about a lot too. Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Feinstein before she kicked. Who is electing these? Is it truly that the majority of their constituents think they're the best choice? Right?
They can't. Right. And the point is we want fresh perspectives. I'm all for term limits because what happens is they get in these offices and it does become a power base. And by the way, they come in, they're only making $100 some odd thousand a year, and they go out with multi-millions, if not, come on.
Feinstein, her daughter inherited over a $100 million portfolio in properties, etc., and a $60-some million private jet. And Feinstein never made over $200,000 a year.
Why are we not protesting the streets about that?
I just want her stock picker and financial planner.
I want that audited. I want a major audit for those people. But the other thing that would be good, because a lot of people go, oh my gosh, we can't go back to paper. That's so, 80s or whatever. And if we can do it right now, we have a little bit of better technology where we can videotape what's happening.
Right.
So that it could be a live feed. So it's kind of hard to hack something when there's a live feed. And you can also then preserve, and you can have observers there. So you've got not only the observers, but the video. So everybody's kind of looking at the same time. And then you can take that video and even give it to the high school students afterwards and say, hey, we want you to go review this, and you count it to audit and confirm what the hand counters had. And of course, you'll have two different hand counters, and they've got to mesh, and then you've got the observers, and they are looking at it. So there's lots of ways you can control that and make sure that it's completely transparent. And once again, totally private.
So what is the biggest complaint against hand-marked paper ballots? Is it what you just described, that somehow there wouldn't be transparency? That seems like a weak argument. So why do they?
Good question.
What do they say when presented with this? They
love the machines. The machines are great. It's like, one of our ex-legislators said, whenever I mention the machines, they talk to them like they're members of their family. You realize they voted in these machines. So they've got to say, well, we spent $51 million on these machines in South Carolina. That's not even counting the poll books, which were like another $4 or $5 million. And so they've got to now substantiate that, I guess. But my whole point is when the facts change, you need to change your opinion on the matter. And our new mantra here in South Carolina is the people want paper. Everywhere I go, and the team goes, because really this is more than me. I want to make that clear. There's a lot of people working really hard in South Carolina. I just, I heard the cool cats.
Right.
That's my job. I heard the cool cats. And so when they interact with people, when I interact with people, the people go, I just don't trust it. I don't want to vote. And that's horrible to hear.
Right. And
it breaks my heart. And the candidates go, I don't want to run.
I think
I'm not running with this crappy system.
Yeah, if we were to go right now, just down the street here in this local community and talk to people about it and just have a regular conversation with regular people and say, would you want uncertainty as to whether or not your vote was counted accurately, or would you want to do paper? Everybody would say paper, right?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, just in the past month and a half, there's been some people that are working on a petition for paper ballots. And I think they have like over 1,700 signatures in just a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And, they're just doing it ad hoc. But the whole point is, once again, you go back to that Rasmussen poll, 62% of the people don't trust. That means they're not going to show up. It means they're not going to run. It means it's sad. We have to listen, this is the most important thing we have. It's our vote. It's our voice.
Yeah.
Our voice is not being heard. And when you go to your people and they go, trust us, everything's fine. Well, the computer professionals we interact with are like, anything can be hacked. One of our team members did a white paper on the vulnerabilities, and it's on our website, scsafeelections.org.
Okay. We'll put that down in the description too.
Great. He found hundreds of vulnerabilities in the 2020 system we used and hundreds of vulnerabilities in the 2022 system we used.
Now,
So
when
it
you
was a
say
different system.
vulnerabilities, do you mean potential access points for someone to hack and make changes?
Yep.
Wow.
Multiple. It could be like a security patch, or it's all security issues.
Right.
That they have designated, that they have determined through doing their research. And because remember, there's commercial off-the shelf components that are a part of the system. There are various parts of the system that have vulnerabilities, and there's certain software, and so he did that analysis and he found that there were hundreds of vulnerabilities. And then he says, Laura, you only need one.
Right.
It's so easy. You can hack these simply with just if somebody can get access and put a USB drive in, you can do it that way. We get our flash drives from ES&S. I don't know if there's malware on there.
Right. Yeah, they're asking us to have a lot of faith.
Yeah, and it's why are you asking questions? We don't want you to ask questions. How dare you?
Right. Yeah, it should be the exact opposite. They should be bending over backwards to prove to us that it's accurate.
Yeah, we want you to feel confident. We want you to trust the system. What can we do? Here, we know the system's fine. Here's the report.
Right. It's like if you buy a new car and you want to make sure it's safe because you care about not dying, and you ask the dealer a question about the airbag system or whatever, and they're telling you, "How dare you ask me that? Don't worry about it. It's fine." Like, it's the exact same thing. It's like, we just want to be sure that our vote is being counted accurately, that this thing that you're pushing on us actually works and works the way you say it will. But then they almost treat it as though it's an insult.
Oh, and we're domestic terrorists, and we're election deniers, and we're just problem, and blah, blah, blah. It's ridiculous. That's their narrative. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But, we have a reason to be concerned because of issues that we've seen in other states. We have a reason to be concerned because we canvassed and we talked to the people in those homes, and we asked them 3 questions. And they were very happy to talk to us. Did you vote in the 2020 election? Did you vote absentee or in person? And who was living at this house at the time? Because we would do the research and we'd say, we knew who voted from that house. Were these people living there at least, at 30 days or beforehand, before the election? And a lot of those people would say, no, I bought this house 5 years ago from this person.
Wow.
But that person voted. That's an ineligible vote. We found people that were registered and voting from Dunkin' Donuts, graveyards, vacant lots.
Yeah, just some random intersection with nothing there. You saw all kinds of crazy stuff.
Weird. And then what the saddest part for me, and it almost makes me want to cry, is when you see these people who are deceased. Mm-hmm. And there's people voting under a deceased person's name. And we literally went to we had countless people researching these names, their addresses, searching their obituaries, making photographs of these obituaries, and saying, hey, and looking at their birth and their death date and comparing it to the their voter records. We did the research. And some of them are still on the rolls.
Wow.
And they're still voting.
So who is actually voting for these dead people? How does that even happen?
Well, I could only venture a guess, but
Venture a guess.
It could happen with a machine. So what happens is,
okay.
let's say you moved, and so what you should do, and this is a public service announcement now, what you absolutely should do when you move from one state to another state or even to a different county is let your election commission or your secretary of state know I moved, because that's one of the reasons that they can automatically take you off the rolls. But see, they never remove you, really. They make you inactive. Okay. It's only after you've been inactive for a long time, I think, that they actually remove you. But you're in inactive status. I don't think they ever really remove you. They might archive you, I think is what they call it. But at any rate, they have to you have to not have voted in 2 general elections. And then they send you a postcard. And if the postcard comes back to them, and I think they give it like a 30-day window, then they make you inactive. So it can take at some points up to 8 years. I mean, I've found instances where this has happened, 8 years where people are made inactive. So
and they're still voting during that time?
Yeah, some of them do. And so what happens is, what we think happens is they switch them to active and then put them back to inactive.
Oh, I see.
So one of the things we want to do is maybe make sure those databases are completely separated and compartmentalized. And so
what I was kind of thinking was, someone passes away, people are rounding up, mail-in ballots for deceased people and casting the vote.
But
it could be something.
Identity. That's identity theft.
Right. But it could even be something where there's this sort of programming that's this sweeping command to say, if they're inactive, switch them to active, vote, I don't know, Democrat, and then switch them back to inactive. And that could just be accomplished with a line of
seconds.
code.
Yeah, seconds. So, and what happens is and the reason I say that that's my hypothesis, not like accusing, is because in other states where they get the voter rolls every month because they're free, ours are $2,500. So this is the thing.
Make it next to impossible.
That's right. And my guess is they're probably going to increase the rate because they don't want us to have that information. Wow. So once again, how do you really want us to trust if you're not giving us audit records, you're not giving us security logs, you're not giving us the voter rolls because they're so expensive? Who the heck can afford that? They're supposed to be a reasonable cost. That's not reasonable.
Right. Because it takes them so much labor and effort to provide that. Yeah, exactly.
So, and we paid for it. I mean, it's our system, once again, like you said. So what we found in other states is there's an injection of voters right before the election, and then right after that, poof, they're gone.
Wow. So there really is something to this potentially being the mechanism through which they do that.
It's a hypothesis. So, but it's once again, there's a lot of issues there's lots of issues with the system. This is why we don't trust it. There's an issue with data hygiene in the voter rolls. We've seen that multiple times. We've done little podcasts on it. There's an issue with the computer hygiene itself. We're not even, the certification of these machines is such a ridiculous process. And it's so rudimentary. And they're basically only certifying it to standards of 2005. And think about how computers have changed since then.
Yeah.
That is an issue. And by the way, the certification of our machines was not done to the standard code through the EAC, the Election Assistance Commission. It wasn't done properly for 2020. So that's a concern. And then you have the logic and accuracy testing. And that's a concern because in my opinion, they don't do enough robust testing there to make it such that you really have confidence in it. You could even program a computer to be fine for the first 100 ballots that go through, which would be like the logic and accuracy testing, let's say. And then poof, it's going to go and do.
You can game that side of it.
Easily.
Yeah.
Anything can be hacked. Anything can be programmed. And then you get into the situation where they might have hand count audits afterwards where they say, okay, everybody can see our audit. We're going to confirm that this is what happened. And then some people show up and it's like, oh, we did that 2 hours ago. Sorry, it's done. And so once again, you have to be completely transparent with the people. You've got to show them. You can't just say, trust us.
Right.
You got to show us. And so that's all we're doing is we're trying to gain data, get data, So we're collating it ourselves, and we're trying to get it from our election commission and other areas. And when they do talk to the hand, that's when you become very suspicious. It doesn't inspire trust. And so that's why we're fighting this in court. We want to get our cast vote records so we can analyze them. They countersued us to say, we never want you to FOIA anything from the 2020 election again.
How can they even do that?
It's completely unconstitutional.
Yeah.
And they want to know exactly how many members we have and and they want to go and, I don't know, try to keep us from ever asking for things or I don't know. It just seems very, for people who are concerned about privacy, they certainly are concerned about our privacy.
Right.
As citizens, just asking for things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I see a lot of parallels between your efforts and what's going on with election integrity and, for example, what the ladies at Moms for Liberty are dealing with the schools, right? Mm-hmm. So your exact same analogy, right? When you have the significant other who won't show you their phone. These schools, it's like pulling teeth trying to find out what they have in their libraries.
And that's your kids. Your kids are being exposed to that. You have every right to that transparency.
Or even worse, to get the curriculum from a particular teacher. Moms for Liberty has had to submit FOIA requests just to get the curricula from teachers in schools that our tax dollars pay for to educate our children. And so it's no coincidence that these institutions are so guarded in what they'll allow you to see. It was very telling, at least in my opinion, for example, when Joe Biden said they're not just your kids, right? They belong to the country or whatever.
Them.
Yeah, exactly. And so it is sort of a pervasive, I think, paradigm where all these institutions just think that they are better than, bigger than, more powerful than we the people. And it's all gone to their head and they try to operate in secrecy. And I think that if nothing else, the past 3 years has seen sort of the sea change of people, the moms standing up at the school board meetings or at the libraries or at the schools, and then people like yourself standing up for election integrity. But, when I hear all of this, quite honestly, as a South Carolinian, someone who lives here in this state, and we're talking specifically about our systems, it infuriates me. But then my next question is, what the hell can I actually do? And someone listening to my show who's in South Carolina, what can they do? What should they do? What happens if you are able to get what you're trying to get and you find out all of these things did happen? What recourse do we have? Looking retroactively, but then also moving forward, how can we implement change? How can we get this fixed?
Well, I think that's a great question. So first off, I am seeing this trend across the nation of a lack of adherence to the FOIA requests. And that's disturbing to me because the whole point of the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, is it's called the Sunshine Law because sunshine is the best disinfectant.
Yeah. And how can they just say no to a FOIA request?
They come up with all kinds of reasons. But the whole point is, this is the problem. So we need people to stand up. There's more of us than there are of them. And people have to start realizing this. And I have to say, I'm a little disappointed because I think a lot of people are lazy right now.
100%.
We only have a certain percentage of people who are really willing to go to bat and fight and do something to change the system. A certain percentage of the parents at the school board meetings, always the same people, right?
Yep.
A certain percentage of people for the election. You have to get up and do something. And it's perfectly easy. And, for us, one of the things that we want to encourage people out there to do is to go talk to your legislators, your local state representative and your state senator, and encourage them. Say, I don't think the election integrity bills we have on the books are enough. I want paper ballots. I want to see more transparency. I want to see more. If they keep the machines, then they better be giving us these documents, these audit records, these security logs, things like that, so that we can see, okay, it's good. Everything. Hey, I'd love to be able to say, South Carolina, you're doing it great. Everything's good.
Are there any states that have hand-marked paper ballots?
There are a few. I think Maine in particular is one state where they have, and we're making strides because I know that there's people in Georgia working on this that have gotten some counties. California, actually, oddly enough.
That's shocking.
Yeah, and so because the people want it, they just don't trust it. So people have to get in touch with their legislators, local, not the federal, the U.S., because election laws done at the local level, state level, and tell them we need to do better. We'd like to see paper ballots, hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots. What we have is not paper ballots right now. It's not, sorry. And we want more accountability and auditability. So that's really one thing to do that would help. It's a phone call.
Right.
Go to our website, which is scsafeelections.org. We have so much information there. There's a news and resource page. We have blogs. You can type in cast vote records, CVRs. We can give you all the updates on that lawsuit. You can type in hacking. We show how easy it is to hack a computer system. You know, one of the things you also talked about the other countries where they've switched, and I forgot to answer that question. So one of the people that we're working with, Clint Curtis, he was actually asked by the Republicans in like 2004 or 2002, it was somewhere between 2000 and 2004. 2004, he actually testified to Congress. He was asked to write a program to flip the elections, to hack the elections.
To see if it's possible.
No, they wanted to do it to give them the advantage, so they won.
No kidding.
So then
Wait, when was this again?
This was in like early 2000s. You know, this is right after because we had the hanging chads, right?
Right.
2002, they passed the HAVA Act, the Help America Vote Act, which instituted this era of the machines, actually funded the purchase of these machines. And then once they had the machines, now they could program them, right? So he was asked to hack it, program it, flip it. So he testified to Congress in 2004. Hey, I was actually, hired to fix an election for someone, and this is the problem. So he actually has put together a hand-marked system, and he went to these other countries. One of the reasons the Netherlands switched over to paper was he went and said, here's why you need to go to hand-marked paper ballots. And he designed the system that they're using now. And they literally took those machines and put them in the ocean. I think they totally got rid of them.
Yeah, we should too.
They did that in France. France has one day of voting. I think they meet on a Sunday. And they all vote then. And it's hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots.
And they've done it.
They do it in one night. They can count them in one night. We were counting for several weeks in the 2020 election.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Yeah, right.
I mean, you remember, what's your first memory of the 2020 election?
Well, I mean, one of the most distinct memories I have is, so in the lead up to it, just the overwhelming, just amazing level of support Donald Trump had compared to 2016. Just driving around, seeing Trump signs everywhere. And
even in liberal areas. I was up in Pennsylvania, and
yeah.
I would see these signs of Trump, 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 Trump,
yeah.
and I couldn't find a Biden sign. I'm like, whoa.
And the social stigma attached with saying you were a Trump supporter had faded away. People were just outwardly saying it, aside from myself, who just doesn't care, and I'll say it anyway. But I was like, wow, it's going to be a tidal wave of support for Donald Trump. It's going to be so much bigger than 2016. And seeing him in the lead, and then just seeing all of a sudden a pause, a hang up, and then all of a sudden there were all these votes for Joe Biden. And I remember that amongst a bunch of other things, but that was the most distinct moment to me. And then, of course, there have been a lot of things like 2,000 Mules that came out by Dinesh D'Souza, where he's looked at a lot of the different mechanisms through which that could have been pulled off. But that's my most distinct memory, is seeing that happen.
What was the thing that got you most angry? What got you angry about the whole situation?
I mean, gosh, the whole situation angered me. I mean, just feeling as though it was so blatantly obvious and they didn't care. Like it was happening before our eyes, and they just didn't care that because I remember saying to my wife, they could have at least been, more slick with it, because it was so obvious. It was so obvious just all of a sudden. And, there have been people that have since tried to justify it. Like Democrats overwhelmingly voted with the mail-in ballots, and they all came in at once, and all of this. And it's like really 100% of the mail-ins that came in at that time were all for Joe Biden. Really, no Republicans, no pro-Trump people voted with mail-in ballots. So I just remember how
it was surreal.
It was surreal, and I remember thinking, well, I mean, this is too obvious. There's no way that
they're going to get away with this.
They're going to get away with this, right? Like things are about to get interesting, I remember thinking. And then, no, just
Like situation normal, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, just kind of faded away. And then, of course, obviously January 6th and everything that's unfolded with that and the unfair persecution of people who protested there. And I mean, just so many things that happened, right? The inaccurate claims that police officers died there in the line of duty when in fact it was just Ashley Babbitt who was shot by a Capitol police officer. And I mean, I could just rattle off tons of things that have transpired.
It just was defying your logic and your sense of reasonability.
You're sitting there, like you have those moments in life where you're like, are you seeing this?
Am I being punked?
Am I the only one? Am I the only one that's seeing? And when in fact,
that's when I became awake. I just was like, wow.
Yeah. What is your most distinct memory?
Just their election night and seeing that the stopping of, Arizona being called early.
Yeah, that was crazy.
The stopping of the count.
By Fox News for that matter, right?
Yeah, the stopping of the count. And I was kind of following it on several different podcasts and they were kind of saying, oh yeah, this is going to happen. Like they called it. They knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's when I knew. I'm like, okay, if they know that this was going to happen, this was a coordinated thing. But I thought it was like a sting operation or something. But here we are still 3 years later. But, and I want to make it clear that our organization is nonpartisan. So I will fight just as hard for a Democrat who has their vote stolen as a Republican. Like we just care about the sanctity of the vote. It's got to be a better system.
Right. And by the way, I have my partisan preferences, but I will say if you give me complete transparency with the election and fair, the guy I didn't vote for wins, I'm happy. I'm totally happy.
That's right.
Right. But
that's right.
When you make it a black box and you put on top of it a ton of shenanigans, flooding and all these crazy things that happen.
That was on the pizza boxes. When those pizza boxes went up on do you remember that?
No.
They were taping pizza boxes. They
yeah. So people couldn't,
the poll observers. And they said they started taping the pizza boxes up so people couldn't see what was going on in there.
Right. Yeah, I do remember that.
What? This is America.
Yeah. So I mean, that to me is just saying you're up to something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what did you think of 2000 Mules, Dinesh D'Souza's documentary?
I thought it was very powerful. It definitely showed that. So here's the big thing is we don't, when we do drop boxes, which we don't have in South Carolina. Yeah, we do some things right. I mean, we do. Right. I have to say there are some things we do well in South Carolina.
Let me just say we do, but why in the hell do we have open primaries? That our Republican primary is open.
That's a whole other conversation.
I'm just saying. If we're going to call out South Carolina.
Because it helps the incumbents. Let's face it. It helps the incumbents. That's the Incumbency Protection Act. So 2000 Mules, I think it's all about chain of custody.
Right.
You know, you cannot drop a bunch of ballots in a drop box. Multiple ballots. And by the way, there's another thing going on, which I don't know if you follow, but it's called GBI strategies.
Mm-mm.
And what they found this huge ballot harvesting / like they were trying to go and get applications for mail-in ballots, absentee ballots. And it was a very coordinated operation. And because one day the clerk was sitting there in Michigan and someone dropped off like, oh, here's 1,000 mail-in applications. You know, we just need a same person dropping off 1,000 applications. And she's like, well, that's weird. It was 1,000 plus. It was over 1,000. And then she saw it again and some other clerks. So they called in the FBI. They reported it. And then the FBI did nothing. They sat on it. But let me tell you something. So they're not just in Michigan, they were in other states. And when they went into, they busted some hotel room, went in and were looking at some things and they found guns and, you know, all kinds of weird things that you wouldn't expect. People are just kind of asked people to register to vote. And one of the documents they found had, it was a route from Columbia to Charleston. And so I was like, what's going on there? So another FOIA. So I'm waiting for the information on that. But the bottom line is if they were in South Carolina doing the same kind of stuff, we need to know that once again. If anything, just to make sure that, and what did our local law enforcement officials do with that?
Right.
Was it also pushed up to the FBI and they ignored it like they did in Michigan? I don't know. But we have a right to know. Once again, our vote is our voice. This does not inspire trust, and we need to get our trust back. We need that 62 to go way down.
Well, the feds in Michigan were too busy plotting a fake kidnapping scheme with Gretchen Whitmer.
Right? So.
Okay, so give us some hope, though.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of this has been, and rightfully so, doomsday-ish, right?
Yeah.
Not doomsday, but like a little pessimistic because there have been some awful things
we
that
haven't had
have
a lot
unfolded.
of wins. We really haven't. So I have hope about our CVR case. It's a great case. I think we can win. I think we can get transparency. We can get access to the CVR. So that's one thing I feel very, very confident about. I also think that ultimately it's the power of the people. The people just have to make their voice known. There's more of us than there are of them. So the more of us that stand up, that become aware of what's going on, that do something about it. I've seen a difference, a huge shift in the past 2 years that we've been doing this work. We have so many people willing to help out. We have so many people willing to send letters to the reps. We have so many people that are saying, I really do want paper ballots. They're really enthusiastic and excited about it. And, we were pushing for forensic audits at first. And people, it's hard to get really excited about a forensic audit. It's not very sexy, but
True.
But now it's like, yes, people understand a paper ballot. It's simple. It's transparent. We get it. We want it. We want to trust the results. They don't want to vote in the next election. And I personally think this is a spiritual battle, as I'm sure you believe. There's got to be a little bit of a God factor here. And I do believe that something is going to shift. I don't know what exactly, but I do believe it's already in the process of shifting. There's going to be more things divulged. I think there's a lot of things and stuff and things that are going to happen over the next couple months, which could be pivotal. Unfortunately, I think that the people are going to need to be shocked more in order to wake up, to come to that, as I call it, the precipice, in order to make a sea change that really is going to work. And it's not going to be for everybody. Not everybody's, we have to be resilient though. Like I say, I get up every morning, I get in the ring, I get hit, I fall down, and I bounce back up with a smile on my face.
Right.
That's my life. But what's worth fighting for? I want a better America for my kids, my future grandkids. I don't want them living in a 15-minute city eating bugs.
Agreed.
So this is a fight worth having, and more people have to stand up. More people have to talk to their legislators because they don't pay attention if there's 5 or 10 people rallying at the State House.
Right.
But if there's 500 to 1,000, they will. And we're going to do that this year. We're going to have a rally for election integrity, very peaceful rally, but just to let them know, hey, we care. The people want paper.
And by the way, if your legislator doesn't pay attention or listen or writes you off, hand waves you, and treats you as less than,
they're part of the problem.
Vote them the hell out.
That's right. You're either with us or you're against us. Because it's a representative form of government. You need to listen to your people. It's like I don't want to get off topic, but it's like the Ukrainian stuff.
We can talk that.
Nobody wants to give more money to Ukraine.
Nobody.
No one. And yet our representative, we got to get more. We didn't give enough. And it's like, are you kidding me?
We've got
so many problems here.
Nikki Haley and Tim Scott standing up there at the debate.
Neocons.
Saying that the best thing we can do for American security is keep giving Ukraine billions of dollars because it's going to weaken Russia's military presence.
We don't have enough supplies for our own military. We're depleting our resources. It makes me sick to my stomach.
It's insane.
And we're going to send our guys over, our sons, our daughters, to go fight that battle because it's a proxy war against Russia. Did any of us really vote for that?
No, of course
not. Did Congress even vote for a proxy war with Russia?
And it's interesting that you've noticed that all of a sudden people on the left are pro-war.
Hello? What the heck?
It's been surreal to see it happen.
It's a total uniparty coming together.
It truly is.
And they can't even account for that money.
I really liked Trump's answer at the CNN town hall when she asked him. And the way she phrased it was dumb. But she said, do you want Ukraine to win or do you want Russia to win? And he said, I want people to stop dying.
Yeah, I loved that. That was a great response.
That was a perfect answer. Yeah. And you're not going to hear that answer from Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Lindsey Graham.
Joe Wilson.
But Lindsey Graham saying, basically, I think it was a conversation with Zelensky that was recorded. He was like, nothing makes me happier than killing Russians. I'm like, bro, it's not the 1980s Cold War. Like, these people are insane. And by the way, why, talking about South Carolina, why do we have 2 male senators with no children who aren't married? That has always struck me as weird.
I don't know. That's interesting. I mean, I haven't looked too much into their personal lives, but it is. Some people are married to the government, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. Personally, I
married to
That's
their job.
always been weird to me. I'm
It is
like,
a little odd. I mean, it's very rare, I guess, when you think about it. But I
don't
guess
know.
there are more single people. But yeah, it is a little odd.
Come on. We are, somebody told me the other day, we're the bluest red state.
Okay, they actually did.
So there's some factual basis to this?
Yes, I have to find it. I've got it somewhere on my website, but they did. I forget the group that did the study, but they looked at the legislatures in that are supposedly red, that are conservative across the United States, and we were the second most liberal conservative legislature. It's supposed to be red.
Behind who?
Hawaii.
Wait,
Which I'm surprised
Hawaii is
Hawaii
supposed
has.
to be conservative?
Apparently, they have a.
That's wild.
I know, it was weird. So I was like, okay, I get it though, because we go and we fight for election integrity, and they just, and I don't know if you've ever been and seen how they do these little vote for these bills, but it's like, blah, 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 passed. And it's like, you can't even get a word in edgewise. It's like, they just try to ram it in and it's like even if you go and you try to speak at a hearing, you get 3 minutes. It's like, ooh.
Yeah.
So
it's ridiculous. And one of our state reps lives in my neighborhood. I've had conversations with him about it. You know who he is. But he said the way that they'll try to sneak things in to legislation at the last minute, too, at the state house is just insane.
And we don't even have, it's literally sometimes less than 24 hours. And they're supposed to do at least 24 hours. But they sneak it in, and then it's like, by the way, they're doing this at noon. It's like, well, I
right.
can't
And they'll do it at
everything.
3 a.m. When it's just the shenanigans that go on.
It's ridiculous. But it's all orchestrated. They all know what they're doing. They know what they want to put through. They know what they're trying to pass. And they do it, like you're saying, in the dark of night and sneaky and quick. And it's amazing. When they want to get something passed, it's boop, boop, boop.
Right.
But when we want to get something passed, we can't even get it out of the, Judiciary Subcommittee.
We being the people they're supposed to represent.
Exactly. So it's, this is the problem with what has happened with politics. The people's voice has become drowned out, and our state legislatures became like, well, we've got the power, and we're going to make the decisions, and you're the little people. Let them eat cake.
Right. Let them eat cake. So I have to ask, you're clearly a woman on a mission. You're very motivated and you're very inspiring. Just, I think I'm I'm powering up just from being around you, and I'm compelled to just run out there and start doing things. And it's very inspiring and motivating. But how did you get to where this is your mission?
God, there's no other, listen, this is not who I am. I'm I'm a bookish, kind of nerdy. I'm kind of quiet. I just couldn't stop because, well, think about it. Every stage that we looked at the machines, we found vulnerabilities. Uh-oh.
Well, but was there a single moment? I know you described kind of when 2020 was happening, but was there a moment where you were like, yep, this is what I'm going, like all in? Because, I mean, you're all in. Yeah. You're doing this.
Yeah, I put
hardcore.
A lot of money into this.
Right,
personally.
Yourself.
Yeah.
And thank you for that, by the way.
And countless sleepless nights and literally working every day of the week.
So was that organic? Did it just sort of snowball into that?
That's why I say it's a God thing. It's organic. I mean, it's a way of snowballing. It's the way God works in our lives. Right. It was meant to be. I was put here at this time, at this moment, for this reason.
You're the person to do this.
And I never thought of myself as a warrior or strong. I mean, I went my wimpy olive oil.
She's got some, for people just listening, she does have some guns. I will say.
But I just think it's God won't let me stop. And my team is super supportive. This team is great. Like every time I think I can't do, there's someone that lifts me up. There's someone, and listen, it's we. It's a we. It's not a me.
Right.
It's a we. I'm big on that because I am one person, but the team is what is doing the work. The team is what's motivating. The team is what's saying they don't want this. The team, and so it's very much inspiring. And we're a little mighty team, but we're still picking up volunteers here and there that help with this and that, and they're all over the state, and they're more inspired than ever. Their energy gives me more energy. But like I said, I've never been a fighter. I've never been a warrior. But
you
one of my team members
now.
goes, "You're like a Marine. You really should have been in the military." They call me the Marine, and I'm like, "Why? You just don't give up. You're just like power on. You're a warrior.
You're tenacious."
I'm like, me?
Yeah. Well, I think that everybody can become that once they find something worth fighting for.
You're messing with my vote and my freedom, and you pissed me off. You pissed off the wrong person.
Boom. You know, I have to say, the last several guests I've had on this show, I've noticed a trend, and it's really inspiring. I had a lady named Kaylee Kozak on. She's from Arizona. Are you familiar with her? Kaylee's Law. So she's an amazing woman, mother of 5. She was a victim of sexual abuse from a coach when she was in middle school playing soccer. Okay. And she's very open about her story. She's changed a ton of lives through it. But she, again, is a woman on a mission. And what happened is basically her, the man who committed perpetrated the sexual abuse on her was petitioning to have his lifetime parole shut off, right? And so that worried her, and she went to someone, I don't know, in law enforcement, I think, or maybe an attorney, and said, well, when his probation is over, what does that mean for me as the former victim of that sexual crime? Mm-hmm. Does that mean that he can just be in contact with me? Can he just show up at my house? And they were like, well, technically, yeah. Once his probation is over, there are no protections for you.
Wow.
And so this woman got to work. She has no background in policy. She had no background in legal anything. She wrote a bill that she was able to get passed. It's now a law in the state of Arizona and Wisconsin, by the way, and there's several other states that are going to be following suit, where rights are extended to the victim of sexual crimes. Once the perpetrator of that crime's probation is over, they're still protected for their natural life.
So she just affected so many people and protected them. That's the passion that we need more people engaging in.
Yeah. No, quote unquote, normal, everyday people have more power than they realize.
That's right.
And you just mentioned the amount of people she's affected. So Kaylee's Law in Arizona went into effect October of 2022. So we're right at a year. They finally released to her the number of, because they can quantify this, because there are people who they know the perpetrator goes off probation, Kaylee's Law isn't enacted, and they're continued to be protected. Over 1,000 victims in the state of Arizona benefited from her law just in the past year.
That's a God thing.
That's a God thing.
And this is where she had no choice, right?
Right.
Because what was the option? To be in fear that this guy was going to come at her.
Exactly.
Well, we're in the same situation. We have no choice. What is our choice? We let the globals take over. We lose our freedoms. We lose our freedom of speech. We lose our Second Amendment. We lose our ability to have people we want in office. We're in 15-minute cities where they're telling us you can't use that electricity or else we're going to, shut off your credit card.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
or you said something offensive on social media, so you don't get to eat this month.
Exactly. So I'm sorry, I just don't see a choice. And I've never been a politically active person. I always voted. I've always stayed abreast of the issues, but I've never been an activist. I don't even consider myself an activist. I'm an educator and I'm a motivator.
Right. And again, to reiterate what you said, it's not partisan. It's literally, this is an objective examination of our voting system to say we want true and accurate results and we want transparency. And again, if that goes the way of the Democrats, great. If it goes the way of the Republicans, great. That was the will of the people, and that's what matters.
Yep,
right?
Absolutely.
I'm worked up. I'm excited. I mean, so, all right, one more time, where can everybody go if they want to support your cause, if they want to reach out in any way?
Yeah, so go to scsafe.elections.org. That's our website. And we do have our lawsuit, which has been very expensive. So we really appreciate if people could donate to that because, like I said, a lot of us are going out of pocket with that.
And they donate at that link?
Yeah, it's right there. There's a donate link.
Okay.
Really, what I really like people to do is educate themselves on these issues. Go to our news and resources where we have our white papers. We have our blog. If you press right on news and resources, the blog comes up. There's a ton of stuff. You can search for different topics. Really get yourself acquainted with the issues. We've got white papers on there. We've been very, very busy. We've done a lot of good work, and there are a lot of amazing patriots and people who are behind all this work that put their heart and soul into it. Whether it's the canvassing, the poll observation, doing the white papers, these are amazing people that from our state who have done an enormous amount of work. And, please make sure you educate yourself because, we're doing a lot of good work. So.
I know you got a couple of them at the York County GOP
Yes.
who are working with you. And
yes.
we're very thankful for those folks and thankful for you. I mean, you're truly, the work you're doing has an impact. It's very important. I'm grateful for it. And my hope is that those listening, whether you're in South Carolina or not, look, you need to take a look at these things for your own state, but especially in South Carolina, help out any way you can, educate yourself, get involved, and just thank you for what you're doing. I mean, it takes people like you standing up and just saying, I've had enough. That's it. We're going to make a change and we're going to do whatever we can, whatever it takes to get that to happen. So, Laura Scharr, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So much, Dave. Enjoyed it.
Everybody listening, until next time, keep your minds free.